Good morning and welcome to SimWorld today, it's not June 31st, it's July 1st. There's only 30 days in June. A little housekeeping before we get to a free agency conversation with Rico. We're recording this. It is 9:39 p.m. Eastern on Monday night. Some scheduling conflicts did not allow us to be recording for the morning, which means, of course, maybe some things might get missed here. The latest trade as of right now is the Luke Kennard trade, which actually I guess it's not. It's Torian Prince signing with the Milwaukee Bucks. So we will get to everything that happened last night. I say that to just mean if something comes up big over the midnight hours, that's why it is not discussed here. But here we are. Good morning, Rico. First and foremost, how are you doing this fine? I guess still night for everybody, for us here, but morning for everyone listening.
Yeah, doing great. It's always great to hop on and talk a little bit of SWBA, especially now. It's everybody thinks that we're off during the off season, but actually this is the most busiest season. So,
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot to get to, despite no big major moves. I mean, there was the contract extension and there was a trade, but there was two winners from the first day of free agency, and we'll talk about them first. To me, the first big swinger, and I still think a win, were the Atlanta Hawks. They go out, they signed Luke Kennard to a one-year deal. They get Nikhil Alexander-Walker in a signing trade. This is a Hawks team that looks around them. They says the East is falling apart, it's crumbling, and they are putting their chips to the middle and saying, we're going for it, and we're trying to win right now. I was impressed with their first night of free agency.
well, yeah, I had to go back and just look here at the entirety of the roster because, I thought initially I was like, man, I was wondering what they did with the front court and just taking a look at the additions. I mean, the fact that you had that with Kristaps Porzingis coming over from Boston, I love what they got in the draft as well. And then to go along with Dyson Daniels defensively. So the fact that they've added some shooters and a versatile player like Alexander Walker, it really just shows you that Atlanta, they have a roster construction. And I love what they have with Jalen Johnson as well, who was playing very good until he got injured. And so this Atlanta Hawks team, they're right there in the mix because the East is wide open. And we know that, look, the Pacers, they're going to be okay, are pretty good, but they don't have Tyrese Halliburton. And so it's because it's a deep team. But that East is wide open. And I think Atlanta, they're very much knocking on the door here.
This is an Atlanta team. If you listen to any other talking heads about the Hawks, you'll kind of get the similar sentiment of this is a team that feels like they're going all in and saying, Trae Young, with your player option next season, it's time to prove just how good you are. Can you lead this team? And you look at them, and I think this is a group that's 7, 8 guys deep between Trae Young can start at your point guard, obviously. Jalen Johnson was an all-star last season. You could start one of Dyson Daniels or Nikhil Alexander-Walker. You got Porzingis and Okongwu, and then you add the other of Daniels or Nah, Luke Kennard, Zachary Reese-Shea, and you start being 8-man deep on a team that's really, really talented in a conference that's really not. And I love this move. I don't think that people see 4 for whatever it was for Alex at 54, something like that, for Alexander Walker, 1 for 11. Like, those aren't huge names, but those are the types of guys that really shift the postseason. Like, why were the Thunder so great? Because they had option after option after option. The same with the Pacers. This is a team right now, Rico, the Hawks, that are really built to win. I'm really excited about what they've done in the first 3 hours and 44 minutes of free agency.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Atlanta really came in with a plan, and I think that honestly speaking, when it came down to free agency this year, I think that the theme of it is going to be getting role players that help
Yeah.
your team. I don't think it's necessarily about the star power, and I think that even though it's not just necessarily a whole bunch of stars that's signing and making these leaps and stuff like that. But a lot of these role players that have come over to these teams have made these teams better. And I'm sure we'll talk about it some more. But Atlanta, I could see what you're saying with them and just the additions, because, like I said, you get somebody that helps space the floor. And there was so much speculation about just would they be bringing back Trae Young? Like, I mean, so many trade conversations. And like you said, it seems to be they're saying, okay, you're our guy, here's the other pieces that go along with you. Let's see what we can do. Because remember, the Hawks, I believe they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, if I'm not mistaken, just a couple seasons back. And so I think that they still really believe in just the core pieces that they have.
Yeah, you have to think and give this Hawks team credit. They have made swings, right? Dejounte Murray, they made a swing for it. They moved on from that when they realized it wasn't working out for them, and I think they might have gotten back a really good piece in Dyson Daniels in the first of two trades that the Hawks, I think, have won against New Orleans. The other, of course, being their unprotected first-round pick next season. They have made swings. Now, they haven't hit on all of them. That's why they have a new GM in the building. But they have made attempts at getting better, and I think they've done that. And at the very least, they've made the very real attempt, and not just a cursory, well, we're making a move, we're moving the deck chairs. This is not a move in the deck chairs. This is a all-in, considering the options on the floor, while keeping a lot of the gunpowder dry for future shots. I mean, you still, of course, have next season's first-round pick. I'm trying to see if we've got... so they've got their first-round pick next season. They've got the Kings pick, which is top 10 protected, and then the Spurs have the swap next season, and then the year after that they get the Bucks pick, and of course they have the unprotected first from New Orleans next season. You get the Bucks pick the following year, so you've got a lot of options, and that Bucks pick could become super valuable if Giannis goes anywhere. You've got options where you can take this puzzle piece together and say, heck, maybe we make another move, right? Porzingis, $30 million expiring. You can take him and add in a little piece, and suddenly, him plus a Kongwu, and you're at $45 million, and now you're really in the ballpark of a star. So I love what they've done with this team to be competitive right now when the Eastern Conference really is not expected to. They lose Clint Capella, who we'll get to shortly. But if I look around at the rest of the Eastern Conference, personally, I don't know how anyone else has reacted to this. I think that this is a team that's very well positioned to be a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference this coming season.
Yeah, it's going to all depend on if it comes together. And like you said, you mentioned really an interesting part is that Porzingis, you really could flip that. And it's interesting too because there's a lot of noise around Anthony Simons that just went over to Boston and the possibility of him being flipped. And so, I think that
To
when teams are
Atlanta?
thinking about what's that?
Getting flipped to Atlanta?
No, 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 just being flipped in general. So I'm just trying to
Okay.
make the point that I love the fact that when you get a team that gets an asset and it doesn't mean that they're going to go, hey, we're just going to ride with it. The fact that they could be thinking, hey, long term here, we can flip this thing because they could end up going ahead and saying, hey, you know what? We're going to see what happens towards the trade deadline. Is there something else that pushes us over the top? Because we know, with Porzingis, the way that he struggled with injuries and things like that, maybe they are forward thinking that way, or maybe there's something that they see that's on the table this offseason where they're like, maybe we should flip this asset. But I like the fact that they have a lot of draft capital because one of the things that OKC has done, and the reason why they are where they're at, is because they know how to get draft capital and actually use it to get assets, and they don't just sit there on the asset. So if Atlanta is forward thinking like this in an East that is wide open, I like it because this kind of goes into just really what's going on with the Eastern Conference because Lonzo just got moved over to the Cavs. And so Atlanta said, hey, we got to do something.
You got to do something, and I think they did a lot of somethings. This has also been the morning, or the afternoon rather, of reunions. So Clint Capella back in Houston, but that's not that's a viable winner, and I do want to talk Rockets. But the Denver Nuggets trading Michael Porter Jr. and a single first-round pick to the Brooklyn Nets for Cam Johnson. That's not a reunion, but it is getting them I think probably a just as good Michael Porter Jr. that doesn't take dumb shots. And then also getting Bruce Brown on a vet minimum 2 seasons after he walked out the door for $20 million a year that the Pacers paid him and then used that essentially as a trade exception a walking trade exception, which they got Pascal Siakam. So the Denver Nuggets, I thought have had a really good day. Cam Johnson is a dynamic 3-point shooter and a great defender. One of those things, Michael Porter Jr. is not. He's also Cam Johnson, not a shot hunter. One of the things that Michael Porter Jr. is, and the cost capital of one unprotected first to bring in Cam Johnson, he's a great fit now next to Jamal Murray. You add in Bruce Brown, who's a great fit next to Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. I really like what the Denver Nuggets did, which pains me to say as a Warriors fan looking up and seeing all of the Western Conference get better, seemingly except them.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing with Michael Porter Jr. is that you knew something was coming, right? Because there had
Had
been a
to.
lot of talks around him, right? And it was just like, okay, just looking at this roster, you knew that Denver had to do something. And so
Yeah.
I understand that they bring in Cam Johnson and you probably get a little bit of something there defensively. I think keep in mind that Cam was on those Phoenix Suns teams that were pretty good. And so I think you're right. He does instantly fit in with the Nuggets, and I do like the fact that they bring Bruce Brown back because with him, he certainly has the championship experience, and I think that he probably should have never left. But I understand, how it goes and how fluid the SWBA is. But for him to come back, you're starting to now get something that it defines your bench. I think that that's really the key for Denver, and that's what I want to see in the remaining of the free agency period here is what can they add to this bench? Because if they can add, a player that is like a Bruce Brown at that minimum, that can be an impact for them and lead that unit, then Denver can be right back where they were and counting that they could stay healthy.
So this is the list of guys who got minutes last season who will be on the roster this coming one. Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther, Jalen Pickett. That's 7 guys. Varying degrees of minutes, but they really leaned in. I thought Strawther and Pickett by the end of it and Peyton Watson were pretty solid. There's 7. You're adding Bruce Brown and Cam Johnson. So now you've got 9 guys when you're looking at saying, what's our playoff rotation? That's it. I mean, playoff rotations are typically 7 to 9. The Nuggets have 7 to 9 right now. And you are telling your star after this really weird press conference last week, well, maybe we have to trade Jokic. You don't have to. We don't have to trade him. Let's not panic here because we got Bruce Brown on a vet minimum, which is a steal and a half, and they'll probably end up being the best discount deal of the postseason or of the free agency period. And you add Cam Johnson, and you are instantly ready. And I think they shaved $17 million off of their cap sheet by swapping Michael Porter Jr. for Cam Johnson. So you put yourself in much better position for a team that doesn't want to pay the luxury tax. They're just over the first apron. They've got plenty of second apron room, $10 million, and that's really the hard cap, if you will. This is a Nuggets team that's got the roster, that's got the star, and you've added a really nice piece that I don't know if I take the Nuggets over Denver, but I don't put them far behind them right now.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing with the Nuggets. I just think again that for them, I mean, it's solid, but I still feel like that they're like a piece away off that bench because remember they relied a lot on Russell Westbrook,
Mm-hmm.
and I just I just think that they need to shore up the bench just a little bit more for me. And then also too, I wonder what does the front court look like when you have to sit the Joker down, right? I think that
Yep,
they have to find
that's a
ways
big
to
hole.
buy minutes there. And so that's the biggest thing for me. And I think that look, there's still options out there. I mean, look, you could even take a look at I believe Nick Richards, right, for the Suns.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just throwing him out there. That's a guy that I think he's set to make 5 million. You go ahead and if the Suns guarantee his money there, he's tradable. And so I think that that's something that maybe Denver would like to maybe take a look at or should take a look at, in my personal opinion. Somebody that could guard the rim, be a lob threat or something like that. It's not like they need somebody that just necessarily needs to stretch the floor, but somebody that can help you in that second unit. And so Denver, they're off to a great start. They still got a tall, ladder to climb here in the West, but I do like the fact that they're shaking it up. And we knew that Michael Porter Jr. was going to have to be moved because that contract, it wasn't going to work for the long term there.
Yeah, I mean, you make a very good point. The fact that they still need a second creator, and they have not solved the non-Jokic minutes. But I would say adding Cam Johnson, who you mentioned was a really big piece on that Suns team, flexed a really good muscle in Brooklyn. He enters that number 3 guy range for this team, and it's a huge upgrade over the guy who was number 3. Let's go to Houston as we wrap up, because they continue to have just a really, really impressive offseason. Not only do you add Kevin Durant, you trim Fred VanVleet's salary by $20 million. That allows you to add Dorian Finney-Smith for 3 years and like 54 or something like that, 56. I'm bad with math, but you get him for 3 years. So you've instantly solved one of your biggest problems from a year ago, which was we don't have a number 1 guy. Enter Kevin Durant. We need shooting. Enter Kevin Durant and Dorian Finney-Smith. We want to still be just an awesome defensive team. Enter Dorian Finney-Smith, who's a hound on the defensive side of the ball as a 3-and-D wing. I guess my only question is, you signed Steven Adams for $14 million on an extension, and you just gave Clint Capella $6.8 million as part of a 3-year deal. It feels like you've got a lot of big men behind Alperen Şengün, but otherwise, this team is still so well put together, and the Clint Capella signing almost feels like a redundancy to say, well, hey, if somebody wants Steven Adams, who's, by the way, $14 million this season, declining over the next 2 years, not a bad trade piece to use. You signed Jabari Smith to a contract extension. You've still got some availability to make more moves around this young and also veteran roster.
Yeah, and I think that the thinking here for Houston, what they're trying to do is they're trying to really play a lot more to their strength, which was rebounding the basketball. And I think that they're like, okay, look, if we can rebound the basketball even better than what we did defensively, we can get some more possessions this way. We're also going to be able to steal possessions off of other teams' misses too, as well. And so I like where they're going there. And I think too, with their coach, they're just trying to get tougher. I think that they're trying to get tougher. They tried to get some more length here. I think that Clint Capella definitely still gives you some length, but I love what they did with Dorian Finney-Smith, because to me, what that did was really replace Dylan Brooks. I think
Mm-hmm.
that you're not going to get, necessarily maybe the techs and stuff like that that come with him. And don't get me wrong, I love how he plays and stuff like that on the edge. But I think that just with Dorian Finney-Smith, you get that two-way ability, a guy that can knock down shots. And I think that he will bring that intensity on the defensive end. And you're going to need that, especially alongside of Kevin Durant, who we don't even know how many games you're going to get from him. And I think that Houston is really what they're banking on now, is they're lucky that they were able to keep a lot of their youth. They didn't have to give up Şengün. They didn't
Right.
have to give up Jabari Smith, right, Jr. And so you still have your youth. They're fortunate there, right? But they also now have gotten a little older, and I think it's about getting these guys to the point. Like, you need to somehow make sure they're healthy and get them to the point. And so that's why the Rockets are interesting, because they have a good mix between the two. Let's see if it really works and works out for them. And so don't forget too that they got guys like Reed Shepherd still
Right.
waiting. You got what's Cam
Cam Whitmore.
Whitmore, who's a
Yeah.
guy that is out there in trade talks. I'd love to get him in Chicago. But look, man, they still have some moves that they could make too to help this roster.
Well, it pains me to say this, but this is a team that's doing the 2 timeline thing, and they're doing it right.
Mhm.
It pains me as a guy that watched a Warriors team take 3 lottery picks, and very likely by the end of this summer, the only one left standing will be Moses Moody, because now you've got the Rockets, 21-year-old Cam Whitmore, 23-year-old Ahmed Thompson, 21-year-old Reed Shepard, 22-year-old Jabari Smith, 23-year-old Alperen Şengün. I'm not going to act as if all five of those guys are going to stay together for the entirety of their career, but you've got five pieces to choose from, and Amen Thompson and Alperen Şengün have already proven that they're capable of being elite top-end guys, and then you're going to sprinkle in the veterans of Kevin Durant, Fred VanVleet, Dorian Finney-Smith. We talk rotation. That's an 8-man playoff rotation. That doesn't include Steven Adams. That doesn't include Clint Capella. So that gets you up to 10. That doesn't include Jae'Sean Tate. That doesn't include Tari Eason. This team is 12 guys deep. It's a dangerous, dangerous basketball team. And again, the barometer right now, Rico, is Oklahoma City. And Oklahoma City could throw everything at you from up and down that roster. Houston, right now, can throw everything at you from up and down that roster.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that they can. And man, they had to, right? Because the West, we're talking about OKC, but let me throw this out there because one of the deals that I think is really underrated and probably a lot of people are not talking about is what the Clippers were able to do in going out and getting a Brook Lopez. I think that they've quietly got a front line to go along with now James Harden, and then you hopefully get back Kawhi. That's a team that, look, they made some noise towards the end. I think that the Houston Rockets see teams like this getting better in the West, and they knew that they had to not just rely on the youth. Like you said, they had to go in some more on the veteran pieces and say, hey, we've got to mix the two timelines here. And we think that that's going to be enough to get it done. And so we'll see what happens. But yeah, it does look like that what Houston has done is they played it right and everything else. And I think that, to be honest with you, I just don't think that they necessarily gave up a whole bunch to get Kevin Durant like that. I just really don't see that. I think that that was actually a very good move for Houston.
Yeah, I thought it was. I mean, it was a deal and a half for them to get that spot and to survive there with Kevin Durant, and they are extremely well positioned now to make a deep run next season in the SWBA. All right, Rico, I just checked. There's been no other signings, so I think we can safely check out on this one. Appreciate you jumping in. We'll keep talking free agency tomorrow. We'll probably be in recap mode by the next time we speak next week, but appreciate you jumping on here on SimWorld today, Rico, and we'll talk to you all tomorrow here on SimWorld TV, the only place you can see the game, be the game.